They say small towns remember everything, and if you've ever sat down at the same booth in the same corner diner every morning for 10 years, you'll start to believe it. Our town ain't big, just a few streets, a hardware store that closes by 6, and a diner folks still call Marge's, even though Marge passed 10 years ago. But it's the kind of place where people still look you in the eye when they say hello, and where silence speaks louder than a shout. It was a Tuesday morning, chilly but bright, and I'd gone to the diner like always, sat at my usual booth with a coffee and nothing much to do but listen to the buzz of familiar voices. Weather talk, grandkid photos, who fell at the church steps last Sunday. You know, the usual. Then she walked in. Her name was Karen, or at least that's what we all called her. Moved in from the city a few months back, got a house 2 streets down from the courthouse. One of those new remodels with a steel mailbox and no porch furniture. She was always dressed like she was running late to a board meeting, heels clicking, phone glued to her hand, sunglasses even on cloudy days. She didn't wave, didn't smile. She didn't need to. Folks like her weren't built for eye contact. That morning, she walked in with that stiff, impatient stride of hers, stood near the door with arms crossed like the whole place was an inconvenience. You could almost hear her thoughts racing. How long for a table? Who's in charge here? Why does everything smell like bacon? Eventually, she got seated near the back, barked her order with the warmth of a parking ticket, and went right back to typing furiously into her phone. And that's when the other woman walked in. Now, this woman, her name was May. I knew of her. Didn't know her well, but everyone knew what had happened. Husband passed last winter. Cancer. Quick and mean. Left her with a mortgage, 2 dogs, and grief that hung over her shoulders like soaked wool. She moved slower than most folks her age, not from laziness, but because when your heart's that heavy, your legs forget how to hurry. May walked in wearing a faded cardigan, clutching her purse like it held her last breath. She smiled faintly at Betty, the waitress, and handed her a little yellow voucher, one of those meal assistance coupons the county gives out. Not that she wanted to. It looked like it embarrassed her just to pull it out, her fingers trembling like she hoped nobody saw. But someone did. Karen, 3 booths away, saw the whole thing. She paused mid-email, watched May like she was a museum exhibit, then made this sharp little snort loud enough to cut through the soft morning chatter. "Guess your husband didn't leave you much, huh?" she muttered, voice half buried in her latte, but loud enough for May and the rest of us to hear. "That voucher all you got left? I swear to you the air in that diner dropped 10 degrees. May didn't say a word. She didn't turn, didn't flinch, just kept her eyes on the counter like she hadn't heard a thing, but her hand tightened around her coffee cup so hard, I thought it might shatter. Nobody laughed. Nobody joined in. Even Betty, pouring coffee across the room, froze like she'd heard a plate crash. And Karen? She just smiled to herself, this smug, sour little smirk like she'd just said something clever. Then she went back to her phone like she'd swatted a fly and expected applause. But something in that moment shifted. Karen ate in silence after that, fast, mechanical. But I watched her. I saw the way her shoulders started to curl inward, the way her eyes darted around the room like she could feel every glance brushing her skin like sandpaper. And when she left, she didn't say thank you. Just dropped a crumpled bill on the table and walked out like the building might explode. Next morning, she came back. Different this time. Slower. Less composed. I was already there, coffee half full, when she stepped in, looking around like she was expecting a ghost. May wasn't there yet, and Karen looked almost relieved. She sat at a booth by the window, same coffee order, but she didn't even touch her phone. Just stared out at the sidewalk like it held answers. When May finally did come in, same cardigan, same quiet grace, she walked straight to the counter like nothing had happened. Karen flinched. You could see it. That twitch behind the eyes that says, "I know I was wrong, but I don't know what to do about it." And let me tell you, there's no panic like the one you feel when silence becomes your judge. Karen stood, eventually, slow and shaky, and walked over. I don't think she had a plan. She didn't look like someone coming to make peace, more like someone walking into a courtroom, hoping for mercy. She stood there for a long second, then whispered, "I'm sorry. I was rude yesterday. That was wrong." May didn't look up right away. When she did, her eyes met Karen's with a calm that made my throat tighten. "I know you didn't mean it," she said. "We all have our moments." That was it. No lecture. No guilt trip. Just grace. Pure and simple. Karen nodded, no snark, no defense. Just nodded. Then walked back to her booth and sat like her legs barely held her up. Now here's the thing. Most folks would have let that be the end of it. A mistake, an apology, a kind response if that's the end, right? But not for Karen. Because the real story isn't in what she said. It's in what came after. Over the next few days, she kept showing up. No more barking orders. No more phone. She started smiling at Betty. Started nodding to folks she never noticed before. And one morning, maybe a week later, she walked in with 2 cups of coffee. Sat across from May without asking and just said, "I don't expect you to want company, but I figured I'd try." May looked surprised, but she didn't say no. And I swear to you, something changed after that. They didn't become best friends. It wasn't some miracle, but you'd see them, now and then, sitting together. Not always talking. Sometimes just sipping coffee in silence. But there was peace in it. Like 2 women had found something in each other that neither had expected. Karen didn't stop being herself. She still walked fast, still wore her fancy heels, still had opinions sharp enough to slice butter. But she softened. She started asking questions instead of assuming. Started listening instead of judging. And May? She came out of her shell too. Started volunteering down at the library. Even led a grief group at the church. You see, the point of this story isn't that Karen was awful and became a saint. She wasn't. And she didn't. But she changed. And that matters. Because sometimes, the real redemption isn't about dramatic gestures or grand apologies. It's in the quiet mornings that follow when someone sits with their shame and chooses to grow from it instead of running from it. And I think about that a lot. How one cruel comment in a diner full of old faces became the thing that cracked someone open just enough to let some light in. So I'll ask you this. What do you do when you realize you've hurt someone? Do you walk away? Do you defend yourself? Or do you sit in the discomfort, admit it, and try to be better next time? Because maybe, just maybe, what makes a person decent isn't what they say in the moment. It's what they do after the silence. Let me know what you would have done. Would you have forgiven Karen? Was May too Kinder exactly what this world needs more of? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And if you've ever seen something like this happen, right or wrong, share it. You never know who might need to hear your story. Thanks for sticking with me. See you next time.